Hey there! So, on this video, we're going to talk about narcissistic relationships. Why do INFJs attract narcissistic relationships? Have you ever been in a narcissistic relationship? Do you really even know what that term means? I'll be honest with you, up until a couple of months ago, I didn't really know what it means either. A very simple definition of narcissism is being very focused on oneself. For if you're narcissistic, you are focused on yourself to the detriment of other people. So you're only concerned about yourself, you're not concerned about anybody else. Have you ever been in a narcissistic relationship? I know that I certainly have. I've also had narcissistic bosses, and there are even some people in my family who are narcissistic, unfortunately. So, why do INFJs attract narcissistic people? And relationships and workplaces and friends. Why? What's the reason? This is what we're going to talk about, and I'm going to tell you the exact reason. So I want you to take a look at this. This is called the Triad of Self-Esteem. Now, on the left-hand side is what happens in the internal world, and on the right-hand side is what happens in your external world. So how these things show up outside of you. In the internal world, we have two triangles. On the top, we have needs, emotions, and boundaries, and on the bottom, we have enough, lovable, and belonging. Now, the bottom triangle is what's called the universal fears. So everyone, every personality type, every person in the whole world has these universal fears that they're not enough, they're not lovable, and they don't belong anywhere. Now, if you're ever made to feel these things, especially between the ages of 0 to 7, which are your imprint years, if you're ever made to feel that you're not enough, you're not lovable, and you don't belong, then you will compensate by allowing the top triangle to be violated. So you won't be able to express your needs, you won't be able to express your emotions, and you won't be able to set boundaries with people. So let me give you an example of this. When I was young, my older sister, she's about 2 years older than me, she would say things to me like, well, you're pretty, but you're not pretty like I am. Or you have a nice singing voice, but it's not nice like mine. So for me, that led me to believe that I was not enough and that I'm not lovable. And I compensated by not being able to express my boundaries. In fact, I just let her walk all over me. I gave her pretty much everything that she wanted. And I was never able to express my needs or to tell her how I felt, ever. So when we go back to the diagram, on the left-hand side of the page, that's everything that happens internally. And on the right-hand side of the page, this is how it shows up in your external world. You do things like people-pleasing, you get into toxic relationships, you aren't being able to set boundaries, and a lot of INFJs also experience lots and lots of guilt. Now, guilt is just a symptom of violating our own standards or allowing somebody else to violate our standards. Does this make sense? Do you see any of this in your life? So, along with the self-esteem triad, we also have the narcissistic codependent scale. So take a look at the diagram here, where on one side we have narcissistic people, and on the other side we have codependent people. Most people are not 100% narcissistic or 100% codependent. They usually fall somewhere on the spectrum. So somebody who is more codependent, when they don't have their needs met, so they feel like they're not enough, they're not lovable, and they don't belong, they say to themselves, I'm going to do whatever I can for you so that you love me. That's where things like people-pleasing come into play. Not being able to say no, which is not being able to set boundaries. We feel like we are loved by doing everything that we can for those around us. Now, if you're narcissistic, you have the same issue with not being able to get your needs met, But instead of saying, I'm going to do anything that I can for everybody else, you say to yourself, I'm going to love me without you. So you focus all of that attention on yourself. Now, there are different levels of being narcissistic. Not everybody who is narcissistic has narcissistic personality disorder. Those people would be extremely narcissistic. And having narcissistic personality disorder is actually something that needs to be diagnosed by a psychologist or a psychiatrist. But it's definitely something that needs to be addressed. Does this make sense? Do you see any of these issues in your life? And how do you correct them? That's the biggest question that I had when I learned about them. What is it that I need to do to correct it? One of the problems that I've always had from such a young age is not having enough self-confidence. In fact, when I was young, lots of people, my mom, teachers that I've had, bosses that I've had as well, have said to me things like, you just need to have more confidence. And I thought, okay, that's great. How do I get it? It's not like, you can go down to Walmart or Target and buy some. You can't order it off of Amazon. So what do you do when you don't have it? And they said to me, every single one of them has said to me, I don't know. I've never had that problem before. I don't know. You just need to get it somewhere. And I thought, well, that's not very helpful. What am I supposed to do if I don't have it? Where do I get it from? After years and years of searching, I finally found the answer. And I would love to share it with you. It's not some easy thing. It's not like I can just say, okay, go do this one thing and you're going to have confidence, because that's not how it works. It's actually a little bit of work. It's recognizing, okay, I haven't felt like I'm loved for a long time. I haven't even loved myself. I mean, that's a huge step. That's a huge thing. I always heard people talk about loving themselves, and I thought, oh, that's just not, that just doesn't happen. I just don't think that some people just don't love themselves. I think some people, it works for some people, and other people it doesn't work for. I thought it was just some kind of trendy thing that was like, yeah, that's not for me. Like, I don't even know what that means, but please just get out of here with all that talk, because it doesn't make sense to me and I don't like it. But then once I figured out how it actually works and that it is possible for me, that I can do that, I can have that in my life, then I was like, wow, this is a whole new thing. It's a very, very eye-opening experience to be able to say, hey, this is something that I can have. I can feel lovable. I can feel like I'm enough. I can not only figure out what boundaries are, because that's kind of a word that's also like, okay, what does that mean exactly? For me, it means not letting people walk all over me. For me, it means not accepting less than what I deserve. For me, it also means figuring out what it is that I deserve and being able to stand up and say, that's less than that, and I'm not going to accept that anymore. That's why I've attracted all these toxic people in my life. That's why I've put up with friends that I shouldn't have put up with for way too long. That's why I've been in some jobs that I just can't stand for years. And then I think about all that time that I wasted, and I'm like, oh, I wish I would have known this 5 years ago or 10 years ago. I wish I would have taken the time back then to make an investment in myself so that I could have learned all of these things, because they truly are life-changing. It's life-changing to say, I understand why I cry when I get incredibly mad. Do you do that? Do you know why it is? I used to get so incredibly mad and just burst out crying. So an example of that would be in my previous apartment. It was a gorgeous apartment and it was incredibly expensive, like almost too much for me to pay for. But it was in a nice place and I loved it. But the heater quit working and it was 30 degrees outside. And it was like a Sunday. So I called the maintenance people, which is like an answering service on the weekends. And they were like, okay, yeah, we'll send somebody out. And 2 hours go by and it's 60 degrees in my apartment and nobody's called me and nobody's showed up. So I called them back and they're like, oh, yeah, the heater not working is not on the list of emergencies for your building. So yeah, they'll be with you first thing on Monday. And I got so mad because I'm like, you don't understand how much money that I pay for this place. And 60 degrees is really cold. And it was 30 degrees outside, so it was just going to keep getting colder like all night long. I was so mad that I was like seeing red. And what happened was I just burst out crying. And I was even more mad then because I'm like, why am I crying in this situation? This is ridiculous. I should not be crying. I should be cussing at these people. Like, this is terrible. I mean, there's a lot of situations like that too. I've been in situations at work that I have just wanted to be so mad. And it's like all I can do to fight back the tears, which I hate. And I've never known why that was until I started learning about emotions and where they come from and why you feel certain ways that you do. So for me, when I was growing up, I didn't feel like it was okay for me to be angry. I didn't feel like it was okay for me to be really mad and to express that. But I did feel like it was okay for me to be sad and to cry. That was safe. So now, when I get really mad, I still don't feel like it's safe for me to be mad. So instead of being mad, my brain automatically turns on the tears. Do you see how that works? Can you believe that it came from something that happened to me when I was incredibly young? Does that make sense for you? Does that happen to you that way too? There are so many things like this. So many things that once you start learning about them and once you have the awareness, then you're able to shift them. And your life takes on this whole new meaning. All of a sudden, in places where you felt completely powerless, you're able to feel powerful. You're able to say, wait a minute, I can set boundaries. I can love myself. I do deserve better. I deserve better friends. I deserve a better workplace. I deserve so much more in my life. Not just this ridiculousness that I've put up with for so long. If that sounds like something that you're interested in, if you'd like to learn more about that, I would love to talk to you about it. If you are ready to invest in your future, if you're ready to learn about why you feel the way that you do, why you act the way that you do, and if you're ready to make some shifts, some big changes in your life to go after those things that you really, really want, whether it's a new relationship, whether it's a job that you want, if you're looking to start a business, or if you just want to make yourself better, if you're just looking for improvement for your current situation, I would love to work with you. I have this course. It's called the INFJ Woman Self-Development Course. It's starting the first week in October, and I would love for you to be a part of it. We're going to talk about all of these things that we talked about people-pleasing, feeling guilty, being in toxic relationships, and how to get away from all of those things. We're going to talk about emotions and awareness around those emotions so that you can make big changes, so that your life could be completely different. You could have a whole different perspective by the time we're done with this, which is right before Christmas. It's the perfect time because in January, everybody's all new year, new me. You could be ready for that way before January. So if you're ready to invest in your future and to invest in yourself, I would love to talk to you. Please reach out to me. You can send me an email, podcast at infjwoman.com, or you can send me a direct message on Instagram, which is at INFJ Woman, or you can send me a direct message on Facebook, which is also at INFJ Woman. You'll find the links for everything in the notes for this video. I am really looking forward to talking to you. I know that this will be the best decision that you have ever made.